Ferguson, seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion before you this evening resolves to replace the Leader Cabinet system of governance with a committee system. Following our success at the May 2014 elections, our group consisted of a number of seasoned politicians, including Councillor Kerry Smith and our Mayor, Councillor David Harrison, both now independents. But the majority of us, including myself, had never been elected as a borough councillor. In fact, before May 2014, we only had one sitting UKIP elected councillor on the council, the former Deputy Mayor and Wickford-Castleton Ward Borough Councillor Nigel de Gwaley. The first issue on our group's agenda following the elections was a proposal to put a motion before council to revert the system of governance from a Leader Cabinet system to a committee system. Why? Because it's in our party manifesto to do so. UKIP believes more power should rest in the hands of local people and that councillors should always put their residents before their party. Our manifesto categorically states that we will oppose the Cabinet system of local governance and push for a cross-party collaborative committee system. At Council in July 2014, UKIP listed a motion very similar to the one before you tonight. It was indeed proposed by Councillor Harrison and seconded by Councillor de Gwaley. It was not carried because UKIP councillors are not whipped and were free to vote on what they considered best in the interests of the residents. By far the biggest problem within the group was that the majority of those newly elected wanted to have some experience of the Leader Cabinet system and how it worked in practice before jumping in to make a decision. We also wanted to see how other authorities were responding to the new freedoms set out in the Localism Act. While it is UKIP policy, it is an issue that ripped our group apart. And as a business analyst, I personally did not support an early move to a committee system without knowing the full implications. So here we are again. What has changed? The majority of those in our group have now had sufficient experience to make a judgment. There has also been a number of advisory papers published by the LGA, including Rethinking Governance. Similarly, some authorities that have reviewed their governance arrangements have taken the opportunity to be subjected to a peer review. So there's a lot of information in the public domain about the strengths and weaknesses of different governance models. At the last annual council, I stood up and said that in the recent elections, local people once again decided that no single party should have an overall majority on this council. It is therefore incumbent upon us all in this chamber to accept the will of our local electorate, set aside our differences and work together in the interests of local people. To do this, all political parties in Basildon need to demonstrate a maturity of will and embrace a different way of working. It was for those reasons, following our success at the local elections, UKIP were quoted in the press saying exactly that. With 18 seats retained by the Conservatives, we accepted that they had a right to nominate a leader and likewise respected his entitlement to form his own cabinet. To strengthen the way we work, we also introduced new scrutiny committees to be chaired by opposition parties. The role of scrutiny is to hold the executive to account. I did last a little longer as Chair of Housing and Growth than Diane James' record-breaking 18 days as UKIP leader, although it was slightly less time than it took Councillor Holloman to jump ship for the fourth time from the Wickford Independents to the Tories. In making the decision to list this motion, we asked ourselves two questions. How well does the current model serve the residents, and to what extent have all 42 elected members been able to influence decisions made by this authority, particularly as it is a hung council? I could descend into the playground, giving clear examples of how the leader and cabinet members, predominantly Billericay councillors, have ridden roughshod over the rest of us, but I would rather talk about the main practicality issue. I can't speak for other groups, but we have observed that following successive rounds of funding cuts, the capacity of the organisation in terms of resources has significantly reduced. As a result, officers do not have the capacity to run a dual system. They have a job to do in supporting, obviously, the Cabinet and the scrutiny function. It's not surprising, therefore, that opposition parties find themselves blocked when attempting to challenge executive decisions. This cannot go on. It is highly likely that the Council will remain in no overall control for some time. We must therefore find a way to work together, and the committee system seems to be the solution. We need one system where all 42 members can influence decisions rather than merely protest against them from the sidelines. I would like to acknowledge Councillor Harrison's foresight. He is indeed an extremely experienced politician. We should have listened to him and voted this through, but we all now truly believe the committee system is the only way forward. I ask for your support with this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Ferguson, second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to support the motion set out by Councillor Allport Hodge. Elected members will know the difference between the leader cabinet system of government and the committee system, but for the benefit of the public here tonight, I will briefly outline how the more democratic committee system will ensure the Council operates more effectively, efficiently and transparently. Most residents that refer to them down there, meaning the Council, fail to appreciate that elected ward members, regardless of party, have very little input or influence on the major decisions affecting the borough. Most decisions under the leader cabinet system are made by the 7 cabinet members, fondly known to residents as the Billericay Mafia. The scrutiny function can challenge executive decisions, but ultimately it's the cabinet that holds the power and makes decisions affecting our residents. If this motion passes, it would possibly result in the abolition of the present Tory cabinet and the 4 existing scrutiny committees. These could be replaced with 5 new committees whose membership would be politically proportionate. They would also have decision-making powers, giving all residents a democratic voice. The motion states that the Chief Executive be asked to bring forward, following consultation with group leaders, a revised constitution. In our opinion, home councils, where there is no overall control, work better under a committee system. The main advantage of doing so is that the council will be operating one system. The organisation itself is under a great deal of pressure to respond to government funding cuts, with many staff being asked to do more for less. We have some excellent officers, but one can only imagine how they have to respond daily in support of both the Cabinet and scrutiny functions. Under a committee system, committees would simply give consideration to an issue and a democratic vote be taken. It is our view, therefore, that the committee system of governance would be more effective, efficient, and above all, open and transparent. I apologise in advance if he has been misquoted, but Councillor Turner is reported in today's Echo as saying, if these plans go ahead, running the council would be impossible. If he is implying that this council's officers are incapable of operating a committee system, it would be a damnable slur on their integrity and competence. However, his further quoted comment, "I wish they could just let us get on with running the council," perhaps suggests that despite our supported annual council in May this year, he has no intention of finding a way for us to all work together. If this is the case, it is a shameful indictment of his leadership. This motion itself is an indictment that we don't want you to get on and run the council. And the committee system is the only way forward to ensure that we do all work together. Residents need to know that 50% of them down there have been unable to oppose the fact that, 1, the new sites being considered for the emerging local plan went out to public consultation without prior consultation or discussion with members. 2. The waste and recycling changes went out to public consultation without prior consultation or discussion with members. 3. The emerging local plan has, let's face it, been reduced to us being told this is how it's going to be done, rather than any form of proper engagement and input. 4. The role of scrutiny in the emerging local plan has been blocked. Councillor Allport Hodge quite reasonably asked for a task and finish group to be set up to look at the robustness of the evidence, policies and statement of consultation on the Greenbelt Study 2015 and addendum. But no, unlike other local authorities, somewhere in our poorly written constitution it states that the local plan is the sole remit of Cabinet. Are we really saying that all 42 members are expected to take a vote on a plan that will shape our borough over the next 20 years based solely on the views of the 7 Cabinet members? What a nonsense. And 5, the role of the Cabinet member played in forcing the 5 Links renaming scheme through the courts and the tragic outcome of that decision on the health of one of our residents. Need I go on? If planned carefully and properly, or I won't. If planned
You can do it in 7 seconds, yes.
There's no reason for a community system to be impossible to operate. Many other local authorities operate this way, or to be more costly than what pertains at present. And it would encourage all members and officers to work together as one, avoiding the dual system that currently exists. I commend this motion to you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Now, before we go on, I've got 1, 2, 9 speakers for those benches there. I don't want to stifle discussion, but don't repeat what has already been said previously. Let's have a little, like we do in the planning committee. You tell planners that side, tell members of the public, if it's been said, don't repeat it. So if we can stick to that, it'll be useful. And I'm sure Councillor Schrader was coming first, so he hasn't got to apply to that, obviously.
No, I can say whatever I want. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am known to change my mind from time to time, and clearly Councillor Allport Hodge has changed her mind since she voted against your motion not so long ago. And I commend the logical gymnastics that she deployed in order to justify her U-turn. My opinion has not changed. Everything I've read about the committee system has convinced me it's not fit for a modern council in the 21st century. At a time when pressure on local authorities to save money and make efficiencies is astronomical, it surely behoves us to conduct ourselves in a more corporate and business-like fashion, and that surely means ensuring that we are poised to maximise our potential, seize the initiative and create opportunities for the benefit of our residents. To do that, I believe Basildon Council requires strategic leadership, and I don't believe that can or will be delivered by a committee system. I believe it spreads power out too widely and will simply take too long to make the important strategic decisions this authority has to make over the coming years. It also suffers from a surfeit clarity, leaving it unclear who has responsibility for decisions and thereby diminishing democratic accountability. It sustains silos, when we need every single department of this authority pulling in the same direction and acting in unison. I believe a committee system will militate against the kind of joined-up thinking we would all want and which our residents demand. Colleagues will doubtless have noticed, as I have, the motion is completely silent on the cost of change. Clearly, there would be more committee meetings. Has any work been done on the financial implications? Has any work been done to ascertain the effect on staffing requirements? More committees means more resource to run them, more officers to manage the workload. Has anyone considered the extra pressure running these committees will place on our hard-working officers? I think we're looking at a substantial additional burden on officers and also worse, an additional financial burden upon the already stretched public purse. From a practical standpoint, especially in no overall control, it seems a particularly foolhardy move. We all know, with the best will in the world, there'll be arguments, there'll be rancour, agreement will be elusive, acrimony and mischief-making will be in plentiful supply. It'll take forever to get anything done, and at an incredibly important time for Basildon. Not just in terms of the financial challenges we face, but actually the vision we're seeking to deliver for this borough. The Conservatives have aspirations for the borough, and we have a leader in Phil Turner who is putting forward one of the most ambitious programmes for growth and regeneration anywhere in Essex. And through the leader and cabinet model, Councillor Turner is driving that agenda. Now, members opposite can snigger, and they can say what they like about Councillor Turner, but I, for one, value his tenacity, and I'd hope all members would share his aspirations for the borough. I'd hope we all want to see parts of our borough that are struggling rejuvenated and become happy, healthy and prosperous communities. I'm not sure how many in this room remember or have direct experience of the committee system. I don't. It was long gone before I came to this place. But I'm pretty sure nobody from the UKIP benches does either. Yet they're seeking to tie us to this system for 5 years. And if it doesn't work, this decision, born from the frustrations of an impatient opposition, without any in-depth scrutiny to consider the financial and staffing implications, will, I believe, saddle the Basildon taxpayer with a failing system for half a decade. I implore colleagues across all parts of the chamber to think long and hard before shackling us to a system before there's been any real in-depth scrutiny of how it would function in practice. It would be irresponsible for members to vote for this motion before that work has been done. Will I be voting for it, Mr. Mayor? Do lemmings like cliffs? I will certainly be... will I be voting against it, Mr. Mayor? Will I be voting against it? No. I will certainly be voting against, and I urge all members to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Schreiber. Councillor Turner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Here's another one for you. Exactly what have UKIP delivered since they were elected nearly 3 years ago? The answer, of course, is absolutely nothing. And here's an attempt to deliver even more of nothing. I mean, this is going absolutely nowhere. What we would achieve by a committee system is not inclusiveness. It would be stagnation. That's effectively what you're buying into here. And to say that this administration, this minority administration, has not been inclusive is complete bunkum. I mean, just look at the trouble that Councillor Moore has gone to outlay all of the plans on the local plan, probably the biggest issue facing this council at the moment. Now, what do you do when you're faced with a 9 million black hole? I know, you put in a committee system, because that's going to save it. So waste comes before a committee system. Let's imagine us getting an agreement on waste, or anything else for that matter. There are some really difficult decisions coming. Who would want to be in administration to make those difficult decisions? Do you want to look your neighbours in the face and say, yeah, I'm only going to collect your black sacks every other week? No, of course not. What about this one? I'm going to close the George Hurd Centre because we can't afford it anymore. But what about all your community halls? These are decisions that, of course, you can make at committees, aren't they? And that's what you do. You put in a committee system so everybody can be part of it. You know, this is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. We've done pretty well up until now with getting decisions through. And Mr. Mayor, the fact that these policies that come before you, they are available to all. Leaders can attend cabinet. Some leaders do. Where is the UKIP leader do? Not anywhere in sight. There's been no representations, there's been no appearances, yet here we are having a committee system forced on us. Again, because of vanity. And that's all it is. Through her incompetence, we kicked her off her committee. So she's coming back, she wants it all now. And let me speak directly to some of you UKIP people that may be choosing a different party. Get rid of this. No, not you. Definitely not you. Get rid of this. Because it won't be in your interest or anybody else's. They're following a leader who's vain enough to believe that they can control everything. And we've seen it here tonight. She's not alone. Councillor Burton Sampson, he wants to control the finances. Others want to control planning. They want a finger in every pie. We can't afford that. You cannot afford to do it. And this capacity issue with officers, I'm not aware, perhaps the Chief Executive can tell me where that capacity issue is. Because Councillor Allport Hodge seems to know more than I do. Perhaps she does. But I've yet to hear it. The committee system at a time of adversity is not the way you want to go. I've been at the committee system. You get policy on the hoof. You get costs where you never dreamed you would get costs. You would get decisions that you wouldn't even contemplate. And they spring up all of a sudden. And it's a face-saving exercise that you then take those decisions, you make those decisions, and you take them in haste and you repent at leisure. Please, don't go down this route. It is not worthy of Basildon Borough Council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Baggott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start by commending both Councillor Ferguson and Orport Lodge on their excellence in the practice of Gallivatius when they were speaking. One thing that confused me in their speeches was they said it was in their manifesto from the get-go, but then they didn't do it. But then they had a whip which meant that they could all do what they wanted even though it was in the manifesto, and now they're bringing it back for some other reason. And when somebody's articulating a reason they're doing something and they don't even make sense themselves, you have to wonder what their hidden agenda is. And it's mendacious, and it's mendacious in the same way that Councillor Ferguson's speech was. Because I think it's only fair to Councillor Davis. Yes, Councillor Orport Hodge wanted a task and finish group, and it was agreed that we would do everything we could on that commission to give her the fair crack of the whip, and the timescale didn't allow it. So we came up with a solution for her so that she could actually get the answer she wanted. So what has she done? Used her puppet to actually badmouth Councillor Davis and the commission because they didn't get their own way in the way they wanted it. So this is where it comes from. It's not about making decisions, it's not about residents, it's about only having their way in the way they want it. Their way or the highway. I was never a great fan of Tony Blair, but it was him that brought in the cabinet system. And I'm presuming that there's still some Tony Blair fans over there. And do you know what? The great thing about that system was he did recognise that at that time of government something was needed to bring the government and decision making into the 20th century, now 21st century. And it's clearly worked enough that successive governments since that weren't Labour have actually kept the system. So it's I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to the Mayor. This decision, were we to go back to the committee system, sets back the council to the 18th century. When members talk about they don't have the ability to influence, well, can you backside and actually have some influence then? Because do you know what? From my point of view, in a non-cabinet position, there has always been the opportunity to engage with cabinet members should you choose. There's always been the opportunity to engage with scrutiny chairman no matter which side of the fence they sit, should you choose. There's always the opportunity to contribute and pick a task and finish group should you choose. Councillor Gordon is living evidence that if you put your mind to something, you get something done. So bleating on and sitting on a seat saying, oh, we're a backbencher and we don't do anything, is just making excuses and misleading the public.
Yeah.
The committee system, there is no evidence across the country currently that a committee system is a good way of going. There is not a single beacon council in the country that runs a committee system. And when we talk about twin tracking, people tend to forget that the committee just doesn't make decisions, it still has to come to council. So you've still got an element of twin tracking. So the argument that the cabinet system is the only system of twin tracking, again, is a falsehood. But not only that, if you were to consider that you were a developer or a business wanting to move a multi-million-pound business to Basildon, offering employment, jobs and everything else, are you going to go for a system which has a clear leadership and a clear method of getting something done, or where you can have a committee system where everybody sits around arguing the toss about whether or not they want the company to come, how it's going to do it, bartering, horse trading, and then even when they make the decision, having to take it to full council and might not get it done anyway. It's just a ludicrous system. It's a ludicrous idea that businesses, employers, and the people that can make this borough even better than it is are going to actually want to come to a system that's run on a committee basis. And as for the fact that it would get rid of scrutiny, the Centre for Public Scrutiny recognises that even under a committee system, there should still be a scrutiny element. In fact, it's far less transparent having a committee system and no scrutiny than it is having a cabinet system and no scrutiny. So then there's an additional resource because you've now not got you've not only got your extra committees, but you've now got your extra scrutiny as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Hillier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What we've heard from the UKIP benches tonight has been fallacious, it has been muddled, it has been...
Is your microphone on, by the way?
Sorry? No. Was I not speaking loud then? Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor. So, you know, there's been a lot of confusion coming from the speeches on our left here. Mr. Mayor, it was 2001 when we were required to convert to a cabinet system. Now, I can't recall whether Councillor Davies was on the council whilst it was a cabinet committee system for 2 years. 2002. 2002, but right. So you might remember it. Certainly none of the UKIP people do. You do yourself, Mr. Mayor, you in the past, and a number of people on these benches remember a committee system, right? And I think when the discussions first came forward, we were not particularly enamoured of moving to a cabinet system. But then the government of the day took that choice away from us. They simply said, you are of a size, you are going to have a cabinet system. End of story. So, having got there are a number of us who can remember both methods. And I think we are now converting the idea that, in fact, the method we've got now is better, does give more decisive decision-making, and it does take things forward. Councillor Ferguson said, well, the committees will make decisions. Committees did not make decisions. Committees had their resolutions. They were then determined, and the decision finally made at a full council meeting, 6 times a year, when the minutes were read out and things like that. That was when the decision was made 6 times a year. Whereas the cabinet system, decisions could be made every day. Right? So, that is the thing. And therefore, for Councillor Ferguson to claim that a committee system would be more efficient, it's just not borne out by reality. And it just means that he is deluding himself to think that the committee system would be a better system. And there were comments about putting residents first. Yes, we do have to put residents first. But we are living in a representative democracy. Democracy is the will of the people, and the people in this country elect us as their representatives to make decisions on their behalf. That does not mean to say that we have to go forward with what the last person spoke to us about. So sometimes we have to make those decisions where we might upset some people who will normally support us, and sometimes we might keep people who don't normally support us. But that's what we have to do. We have to act in the best interests of the residents of the borough. And I do say that, the borough, not our ward, the interests of the borough. Right? So that means that we make decisions across everything. And now, the confusion I have. Councillor Allport-Hodge said that UKIP are not whipped. Her words, not mine, her words, UKIP are not whipped. She also said that there is, in the UKIP manifesto, a commitment to return to a committee system. So, I want to look at their hands go up. If they are not whipped, they will vote with their consciences, and we might see a different pattern of voting on the benches over there. If, however, the hands of the UKIP group over there go up in unanimity, I suspect they're being whipped.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep this reasonably short, I'm sure you'd be pleased to hear. I don't know how many people actually are here, actually have had the old system, but it just didn't work. I think a couple of people mentioned very briefly, you made the decision at your committee, because you're based on that committee, and you're the experts, you've learned about that, great, you've learned about finance, whatnot, to go to full council, and people like myself, who might not have that knowledge of the finance decision that you've made and want to go through, have little knowledge of it. and then I'll be expected to vote for or against something that you have put forward. And I might not have enough knowledge about it because I've not been on that committee to justify that. So that is how you get a system where it just cannot work. You can vote for things you actually don't actually know about. And be honest, let's be absolutely honest here. I think it's actually nice to see that UKIP actually have got two problems. One, you leave in Europe, and one, go back to the committee system. I've actually found something out today. But you've also got to look at what do some of these things happen in our area. And I'm going to go for the area that I live. Pitsea. Pitsea swimming pool was one of the hardest decisions that I had to make. I have to admit that. Absolutely. But it was the right decision. And it was clearly the right decision. And you ask the people living in Pitsea now, when they go to a place like the Range, where there's been 80 odd jobs created, the wealth is piling into it now. It's piling into Pitsea. Where they've got the market looking good, rather than looking like a tip that it was. The people are loving going to Pitsea. And it was a tough decision. And I have to say, if it's £9 million now we've got to find, it would have been a hell of a lot more had we kept Pitsea swimming pool open. So not was it was not cost effective. It needed basically completely redoing. It was costing. It was cheaper. It was cheaper to ask people to get some money and tell them to go away than actually go swimming. You know, that's how you look at things. Would that decision have been made? Would we have had Wickford? Would Wickford have happened? No. It was through the cabinet system when that happened. It was a hell of a lot of hard graft. I actually don't believe, and I know it's taken a long while, you might snigger at this, but Leyland Shopping Centre. It's taken years and years and years. But we've got somebody in there that actually believes that we can deliver. We can deliver. We try. We put money into a budget that try to encourage people to come in. So we really try. Basildon, would we be having for the college coming in and bringing growth into the town centre? Had there been this system that you wish, would it have got through to the full council to be ratified? I can tell you the answer to that, quite simple. The answer is no. They would not have happened, and businesses would have been running scared to come to Basildon, because you can all talk the talk at that so position, but you can't walk the walk. You cannot deliver on what you wish to. Now, and I have to say, it's very easy for the opposition members here to oppose everything that we put forward. It's really easy. And I know that is. But actually trying to work together and make decisions together, but is an awful lot harder. Because you're so far apart. You know you're far apart on certain issues. But the one thing you're united on is trying to bring us down. And let's get to the actual crux of what it actually is. You know, this was brought forward a long time ago, as you've already heard. And Councillor Hall voted against it, as she said. And then suddenly she loses her position on the council. So what's the first thing she does? She bums in something like this it's just vicious. There is no need here. And I do actually know, and I won't point fingers, I do know members of the Labour Party here tonight do not support this. They might vote for it, but I know they don't support it. And so it's ludicrous. This system will not work. I honestly believe, and I genuinely believe, if this goes forward, then apart from the money that it is costing, that will cost this council, we will lose so much business coming into the council, whether it be a business coming in or a building being built. It will be a catastrophe for it. And I generally mean that, I don't say that lightly. It will be a catastrophe. And I think we're literally going to find ourselves in a position where we'll be bankrupt. Because no one will agree on how you can start and save that £9 million hole, but we will try and
Mr. Mayor, can we put the question be now put, please, under 14.9?
No, you can't, because you've spoken in the debate.
We're going to run out of time.
Yes? I'll call. Councillor Jackman.
Thank you. I thought I'd like to share my experience of the committee system. I was a fresh-faced person to Basildon at that time. It'd been Labour controlled for a long time under then Councillor Potter. For many, well, I think 2, maybe 3 years, we'd pretty much been kicked around the room by the Labour Party. And as a naive green person, I didn't have a great deal of understanding how things worked. What I do remember of the time was that we'd have long and lengthy meetings, we'd go into a great deal of discussion, the committee would make resolutions, it would go to full council, and the party with the biggest majority would do exactly what they wanted to do anyway. We were in danger, although I was actually against it when it first came in, we're in danger of having a and weekly meetings. It requires lobbying. It requires shouting at your own leader if you have to, if he's not listening. But as councillors, we have to work the system. And we have to work the system as best we can. So let's have the best system presented to us. Certainly for Labour, this really is perhaps the leap of faith that some of us have taken this year, and we've asked the public to take. But I will warn you, this leap of faith, if you take it, you will regret it. When you take it.
Councillor Callaghan.
Mayor, could the question now be put, please? 14.9.
No, I think there's enough people still wish to speak, and I'll let them speak. Councillor Callaghan, no one has spoken from that bench yet, so I think they're entitled to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be very, very brief on this because it is the season of goodwill. So I am very tempted to further humiliate Councillors Baggott and Hillier and Blake on what they've said tonight, but I won't do that. It is an extraordinary argument to make that we've created a catastrophe known as a £9 million black hole, but we couldn't possibly let anybody else have a go because we want more time and more power to continue creating that catastrophe of a £9 million black hole. Further, it is another pretty ridiculous argument to come here and say, as an elected councillor, I don't feel like I can vote on something because I didn't go to a committee meeting, so I haven't done my homework, and therefore I couldn't possibly cast a democratic vote as a councillor. So those two arguments aside, the problem that I have with what I'm hearing tonight from the Conservative benches, it falls down ever so slightly in the fact that Eric Pickles, who was the disastrous Communities and Local Government Secretary and neighbouring MP in Brentwood, he introduced the Localism Act, of course, while he was in office. And in that Localism Act, he put forward the preferred Conservative choice for a system of local government governance to be a committee system. And therefore, it was felt by the Conservative Party nationally that the best form of governance was a committee system because it strengthened officer-member relationships, it increased public transparency, and he wanted to see it rolled out across the country. And indeed, if you look over the last couple of years, and Councillor Baggott, I do urge you to do your homework before you speak, you can see in Brighton and Hove Albion, you can see in a whole host of authorities across the country that they have moved to a cabinet system, and the world has not caved in any more than it would have done if the Tories had continued in power. And I will end, Mr. Mayor, by just asking, if the committee system is as disastrous and as terrible as we have heard from the Conservative Party tonight that it is, why oh why, for the best part of the last 10 years, has the Conservative Party in Thurrock fought every single year to introduce a committee system onto Thurrock Council when Labour were in control of it? What do you think about that, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. I've got one last speaker. Councillor Dowd is going to be very brief, and then Councillor Orport-Hodge will wind up.
I direct, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, my comments to Labour, and just to think, excuse me one minute, to just focus on this. I think the committee system, the reality is it works to a fashion. Is it as effective in decision-making process as a cabinet system? It isn't. Insofar as when you look at the reality, the person that has the most votes gets their decision. And I say, believe it brings more focus and accountability, because if we get it wrong and we've made the decision as cabinet, then you use that against us in the election, and then you take control. It's normally Labour or Conservatives. So this council's always been Labour or Conservative control. Either way, administrations. I know I was here when it was John Potter, and anything that they wanted, if they've got the votes, they got it through. That was the reality. What we are doing, if we talk candidly about it, what we're doing, if you allow that to go through, then in effect what we are doing is giving another political party, UKIP, more influence and control. If we just look at it from a political point of view, and we're in politics, and what we're doing is giving UKIP a platform to do their bit, which will go against you when they're doing their electioneering, when they are doing their campaigning. They are taking control and having control and using that control to then try to influence voters to say vote for us. And what they're doing when they're doing that at times, they're being disruptive to the council, in my opinion. That they will be disruptive to certain decisions. We need stability in this council. We need focus. We've got some major key projects. And I'm telling you, they will try to railroad those. We've seen what they've tried to do with other projects within the council that they don't like. And I'm just saying, what this moment in time, what this council needs is stability and accountability. We say we are accountable for our future.
Councillor Daggs, you're performing very well, but you're addressing your own backbenchers now. You're trying to convince them as well. Address the chair, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I believe that we are accountable. We do make decisions which are tough. We can be challenged at the scrutiny here at council, but ultimately will be challenged at the elections. What I would say is that we should not give UKIP more ground, more platform to, in effect, try to gain more ground when some of that ground is achieved by disrupting the well-being and the stability of this council. I genuinely believe that. And ultimately, Labour are likely to have more possibility of control of administration than UKIP will ever have going forward, I think, realistically going forward. I'd say this cabinet system that we have does work. It brings stability. We have some major projects that we don't want to derail, and I think we should carry on with the course that we are steering.
Thank you, Councillor Daggs. I will make one comment myself before Councillor Boys winds up. Having served on a committee system here for many years previously, it wasn't then, as people have described a committee system tonight. I can assure you of that. They did work very well, very functionally, and with good decision making. Can't talk about the future. I know what happened in the past. Councillor Hodge to wind up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't really have a great deal more to add. There's been sufficient debate. Obviously, there are advantages and disadvantages for both systems. Basically, our view is that the current system isn't democratic, it isn't working. We are operating dual systems, and it should be one system for all members and officers to be able to work to one agenda. So I'm just going to ask for it to go to the vote, please, Mr. Mayor.
Right, we'll now vote on motion 11B on page 4. All those in favour, please show. All those against, please show. Any abstentions? The motion is carried. As it's 11:30, we'll now items 11C. Councillor Ellis, you can move without discussion if you wish, or refer or defer.
I'd like to withdraw, thank you, Mayor.
Withdraw. Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Move without discussion, please.
Move without discussion. You have a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Clancy. Okay, everyone clear what the motion is? All those in favour, please show. On the waste disposal one, this one. Oh. I did ask if it was clear. All those against, please show. The motion is carried. Can I thank you all for your attendance, and a happy Christmas and a good New Year to you all.
Merry Christmas now.